ही पट्टी कशी जाईल खालची काय माहिती? ठीक आहे. Okay. Good afternoon, students. We will start with our session number 3. Today we will talk about the global trade environment. Huh? Screen नाही दिसत आहे? Okay, everything. Okay, good afternoon. Okay, everything is fine, I think. Okay. Okay, so the global trade environment. Dr. Rohan Prabhakar Devale, welcome you all. So, learning objectives for today's session, we will explain the role of World Trade Organization, that is WTO, in the facilitating the global trade relation among the all the nations. Then we will compare and contrast the four main categories of preferential trade agreements. Then we will explain the trade relationship dynamics among the signatories of NAFTA. Then we will identify the main preferential trade agreements in Latin America and the key members of each. Then identify the main preferential trade agreement in Asia. Understand the rationale of the creation of both the European Union, that is EU, and the Eurozone. Then describe various activities of the key regional organization in the Middle East, as well as we will explain the issues for the global marketers wishing to expand in the countries in Africa. So we will start with the World Trade Organization and GATT. GATT means General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. So way back in the year 2012 marks the 65th anniversary of the GATT, a treaty among the nations whose government agreed at least principles to promote the trade among the members. GATT was intended to be multinational, multilateral, and global initiative, and GATT negotiated did success in liberalizing world merchandise trade. GATT also an organization that handled over 300 trade disputes, many involving food during the half century of existence. We will see few issues that recently WTO cases. So the countries involved disputes are, suppose first you can read the United States, EU, and Canada versus China. So in 2006, the complaints asked that DSB to consider Chinese tariffs on important auto parts. The complaints argued that their auto manufacturers were at a disadvantage because of Beijing required to buy components and locally and pay high tariffs. So similarly, whatever if in between the tariffs there are some problems between the nations, then WTO they try to resolve those problems. So GATT itself had no enforcement power. That is, the losing party in a dispute was entitled to ignore the ruling, and process of dealing the dispute sometimes stretched on for the years. Little wonder that some of the critics referred just GATT as not the what we have seen, but they are criticizing GATT as general agreement to talk and talk only. So no actions and only talking. The successor of GATT, that is WTO, that is World Trade Organization, come into existence on the January 1st, 1995, from its base in Geneva, Switzerland. The WTO provides a forum for trade-related negotiations among approximately its 153 members. The WTO staff of a neutral trade experts also serve as a mediator in the global trade disputes. The WTO, that is World Trade Organization, has a DSB, that is Dispute Settlement Body, that mediates the complaint concerning unfair trade barriers and also issue between WTO member countries. During the 60 days of the consultation period, parties to a complaint are expected to engage good faith negotiations and reach to in between resolution. If that fails, then complainant can ask DSB, that is this dispute settlement body, to appoint a three-member panel of a trade expert to hear the case behind the closed doors. After convening, the panel has the total 9 months within which they issue its ruling. The DSB is empowered to act on the panel recommendations. The losing party has the opinion of turning into a seven-member appellate body. If after due process a country's trade policies are found to be violate WTO rules, then it is expected to change those policies. The country has to change the policies. If changes are not forthcoming, WTO can authorize the trade sanction against the loser. Now, this table list out some of the recent cases that has been brought to WTO. You can read. Okay. Then the trade ministers representing the WTO members nations meet annually to work on improving the total world trade. It remains to be seen whether the WTO will live up to these expectations or not when it comes to some additional major policies initiatives on such various issues as foreign investments and agriculture subsidiaries. Now, just I will show you one more point that this Daniel Griswold, that is Center for Trade Policy Studies, that is Cato Institute. So, for the WTO process to work, countries have to start liberalizing the policies in politically sensitive sectors. So, this was the statement by the Daniel Griswold for Center for Trade Policy Studios, Cato Institute. Okay, so now we will talk about some preferential trade agreements. The WTO promotes free trade on a global basis. In addition with this, countries in each of the world's regions are seeking to liberalize the trade within their regions. PTA, that is Preferential Trade Agreement, is a mechanism that confirms the special treatment on selecting trading partners. By favoring certain countries, such agreements frequently discriminates against the others. For such type of reasons, it is compulsory for the countries to notify the WTO when they enter to preferential trade agreements. In recent years, the WTO has been notified for approximately 300 preferential trade agreements. Few fully conform to WTO requirements, and none, however, has been disallowed. Now there are four type of categories, that is FTA, that is free trade area, then custom union, then common markets and economic union. So we will talk about this. First is free trade area. So what do you understand by free trade area? Then what do you understand by customs union? What are common markets, and what is the concept of economic union? Okay. So first we will start with free trade area. So we will start with the example first. Just listen to the example, and if you can give the answer, then try to give the answer. So my question is, for example, because Chile is the country. So for example, because Chile and Canada established an FTA, that is free trade area, in 1997. That is Canadian built a Caterpillar grader tractor, that is the product, imported to Chile, would be subject to some duties. If the same price of the equipment was imported from a factory in United States, then the importer would pay about $13,000 as the duties, like import export type of duties. Could this Caterpillar send to US built tractor to Chile by the way of Canada, thereby allowing the importer to avoid the paying duty? So, what have you got the question? There is the FTA agreement between Chile and Canada. Okay, and with this agreement, they do not have to uh, pay anything. But now Chile is exporting something to USA, but they are using the way through Canada. Now the question is, could the Caterpillar send to US built tractor to Chile by the way or path of Canada, thereby allowing the importer to avoid paying the duty? Yes or no? So should Chile pay to Canada or not?
Sir, avoiding what? What would I?
Avoiding paying to the this duty. So this excise duty, etc., should be avoided or should be paid. Huh? Yes, yes. Have you understood the question? ओके, आय विल ट्राय, आय विल रिपीट. मी मराठीत वगैरे सांगू का नाही कळलं तर? का चालेल तसं काही नाही? इफ यू आर हॅव्हिंग एनी ट्रबल इन गेटिंग द क्वेश्चन. Okay, there is FTA agreement between Chile and Canada. Okay, what is the agreement? Yes, between Chile and Canada, two countries. Okay, the agreement is regarding the free trade area. Free trade area means, suppose the Chile is doing the export and import in between those countries, the both do not have to pay anything. Okay, there are no excise duties, nothing like that. Now, in this particular case, the tractor or caterpillar grader tractor is there, that is the product. Now that is imported to Chile. Okay, and they are using the path of Canada. Now who is the importer? Chile is the importer. Yes, and who is the exporter? USA is the exporter, the another country, third country. Okay, but they are using the way to Canada, like from the path or maybe the transportation route through Canada. So whether they have to pay the excise duty or not, because there is a FTA agreement. Okay, the answer here is no, because the tractor would bear the made in USA certificate of origin indicating the subject to the duty. Little wonder when that US agreement or US government negotiated its own bilateral free trade agreement with Chile that entered into force in 2003. Now, what is this FTA? FTA is the free trade area. That is, FTA is formed when two or more countries agree to eliminate the tariffs and other barriers that restrict the trade. When trading partners successfully negotiate a free trade agreement, that is FTA, the ultimate goal is which is have to give them zero duties on the goods across the borders between the partners. It creates the free trade area. In some of the instances, the duties are eliminated on the day of agreement that takes effect. In other cases, duties are phased out over a set period of time. Countries that belongs to FTA can maintain independent trade policies with respect to third country. Rule of origin discovers the important or importation of goods into member country with the lowest external tariff for transshipment to one or more FTA members with higher external tariffs. Now, customs inspector police the borders between the members. Now, just see this next exhibit. Just read this. You are having on the screen this example. So many small business owners are advocated to for this free trade agreement FTA. Speaking on behalf of the Consumer Electronics Association, the CEO of electronic manufacturing, the name is Thail. She notes that today we are a leading maker of high performance speakers with 30 American employees and thousands of grade, that is global trade partners. We are also one of the 2,200 ECA members growing up economy thanks to the free trade. Speak out for free trade. Speak out for this free trade. Support free trade agreement with Colombia, Panama, and South Korea. So, according to this business roundtable, to do more than 300 free trade agreements have been negotiated globally. Roughly 50% of the global trade takes place among the nations linked by FTAs. Additional examples of FTA includes the European Economic Area, a free trade area that includes 27 nations EU plus Norway, Iceland, and the group of three, that is G3, and FTA encompasses the Colombia, Mexico, Venezuela, and Closer Economic Partnership Agreement, a free trade agreement between China and Hong Kong. In October 2011, the United States Congress finally ratified the long delayed FTAs with South Korea, Panama, and Colombia. So, this was the exhibit that talks about this. So, this was about free trade area FTA. Now, we will talk about what is the concept of custom union. The custom union represents the logical evolution of a free trade area. In addition to the eliminating internal barriers of trade, members of customs union agree to establishment of a common external tariff, that is CETs. In 1996, for example, European Union and Turkey initiated a custom union is an effort to boost two-way trade above the average annual level of $20 billion. The agreement called for the elimination of tariff averaging 14% of added 1.5 billion each year to the cost of European goods imported by Turkey. Other custom union discussed in this chapter are the Andean community, then the SICA, that is Central American Integrated System, then CARICOM also. So we will just come to CARICOM and all. So this is about custom union. Then what is common market? Very simple concept. Common market is the next level of economic integration. In addition to removal of the internal barriers of trade and this establishment of the common external tariff, the common market allows the free movement of the factors of producing, including labor and capital. The Andean Committee and SICA and CARICOM, which currently functioning as the custom unions, may ultimately evolve into the true common markets. Next is economic union, that is EU. An economic union builds upon the elimination of internal tariff barriers, the establishment of common external barriers, and free flow of factors. It seeks to coordinate and harmonize the economic and social policy within the Union to facilitate the free flow of capital, labor, and goods and services from country to country. An economic union is a common marketplace not only for goods but also for services and capital. For example, if professionals are going to able to work anywhere in economic union, the members must harmonize their practice licensing, and so that the doctor or lawyer qualified in one country may practice in another country. The full evolution of economic union would involve the creation of a unified central bank, use of single currency, and common policies like agriculture, social services, welfare, then regional development, transport, taxation, competitions, then mergers and acquisitions, and so on. A true economic union requires extensive political unity, which makes it similar to a nation, but the countries are again different, but there is a harmonize between those countries. The further integration of the nation, where members are fully developed economic unions, would be the formulation of the central government that would bring together independent political states into a single political framework. The economic union is approaching its target of completing most of the steps required to become a full economic union, with one notable setback. Despite the fact that 16 members nations ratified a proposed European Constitution, the initiative was deterred by over the voters in France and Netherlands voted against this measure. So now next table and figure I will just show you. Those are compare of various forms of regional economic union. So these are the forms of regional economic unions. So stages of integration, just we have seen a free trade area, then custom union, then common markets, and lastly that is more developed stage of integration, that is economic union. Now what is there? If you just see, this is very simple table. If you just understand this, then you can elaborate in examination entire thing about whatever we have studied. So there are four stages of integration: elimination of tariff and codes among the members, then common external tariff, that is there, yes or no. Then elimination of restriction on the factor movements, and harmonizing and unification of the economic and social policies of the institute. So free trade area, only there is elimination of tariff and quotes among the members. Rest of the things are no, no, and no. But in economic union, you are having all the four stages, like yes, that is they are having elimination of tariff and quotes among the members. Also, up till they are having the harmonizing and unification of the economic and social policies and institutions. So I hope you understand. Then you can just say that this is the hierarchical of preferential trade agreement. So this FTA that abolish the tariff barriers, that is at bottom, and uh, economic union is at top. So this is hierarchy for preferential trade agreements. Any questions till now? Okay, so now we will talk about various countries. So you may find this is exciting, like you will like this. So this is the map of Nafta countries that includes Mexico, United States, and Canada. So we will talk about this North America. That is there in North American region. So North America, which includes Canada, United States, and Mexico, just I have shown in the map, comprises this distinctive regional market. So one of our student is trying to switch to Canada. Okay, so the United States combines the great wealth, large population, vast space, and plentiful natural resources in a single national economic and political environment, and presents unique marketing characteristics. High product ownership levels are associated with high income and relatively high receptivity of innovations and new ideas, both in commercial products as well as in consumer products as well as industrial products. The United States has become more global industry leaders than the other nations of the world. For example, US companies are the dominant producers in computers, then softwares, also aerospace, entertainment, medical equipments, and jet engine, such type of industry sectors. Now, back in 1988, the United States and Canada signed a free trade agreement, that is US Canada FTA, or also called as CFTA. And Canada US Free Trade Area formally come into existence in 1989. This helps explain the more of $400 billion per year in goods and services that flow between Canada and US, the biggest trading relationship between any two single nations. Canada take 20% of US exports, and US states buys approximately 85% of Canada's export. Now this next figure, this illustrates the economic integration of North America and Canada is number one trading partner of the United States. Mexico is at second, and China ranks third. American companies have more invested in Canada than in any other country. Many US manufacturing companies, including General Electric's IBM, use the Canadian operations as the major global suppliers for some of the product lines. By participating in the Canadian auto market, US automakers gain greater economy of scales. CFTA, which was fully implemented when all the duties were eliminated effectively in January 1998, is creating a true continental market for most other companies. Now we will just see. I will just show you the next figure, that is uh, NAFTA. In 1992, representatives of United States, Canada, Mexico concluded negotiations for the NAFTA, that is North American FTA, North American Free Trade Agreement. The agreement was approved by both the houses of US Congress and became effective on 1st January 1994. The result is FTA, Free Trade Area, with combined of the population roughly 450 million and total GDP of almost 16.5 trillion dollar. Now, why does NAFTA creates a free trade area opposed to a custom union or the common market? The governments of all the three nations pledged to promote economic growth through tariff elimination and expanded trade and investment. At present, however, there are no common external tariff nor having any restriction on labor and other factors movement has been eliminated. The issue of legal immigration from Mexico into the United States remain the continuous one. The benefits of the continental free trade will enable all the three countries to meet the economic challenges of the decade to come. The gradual elimination of barriers of the flow of goods, then flow of services, also investment between the companies, coupled with the strong protection of intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights. What is included in intellectual property rights? Can anybody tell? When I say protection of intellectual property rights, that is IPR, then what is included in intellectual property rights?
Coffee like other coffee do.
Intellectual property rights. I hope you are having this syllabus in maybe MIS that includes various patents, then trademarks and copyrights. So, intellectual property right, that means patents, trademarks, and copyrights. So, strong protection of the intellectual property rights will further benefit the businesses. Then it also benefits the workers, farmers, customers as well. Okay. So, the agreement does not leave the door open for the discrepancy of the protectionism. However, for the example, you must know the avocado. So, California avocado growers won the government protection for a market worth rupees 250 million. Mexican avocado growers can only ship their fruit to United States during the winter months and only to states in northeast. However, Mexican avocados are subject to quotas, so only 30 million worth of avocados reach to United States each year. Mexican farmer, his name was Ricardo, he complained that the California grower want to control all over the supply and they what they get the best prices and we would love to have the bigger selling of this season, but right now we have to wait for the US Congress to give the permission. So that was the complaint by the farmer. Now Mexico engages in some protectionism of its own. For example, in 2003, 98.8 tariff was imposed on chicken leg quarters. Beyond the first 50,000 metric tons were imported. In addition, with this, Mexico imposed 46.6% of tariff on red and golden delicious apples. So this is the map of the NAFTA countries. That is Canada, United States, and Mexico. So this is the North America. Now we will talk about CARICOM. So Latin America, SICA, Andean community, then Mercosur, and CARICOM. Now Latin American includes the Caribbean and Central South America. We'll just see first the map of SICA countries. So this is the map of SICA countries. Okay, that includes these many countries: Costa Rica, then El Salvador, then Panama, famous, and two, three more countries. So this Latin America includes Caribbean and Central and South America. Because of NAFTA, Mexico is grouped with the North America. The allure of Latin American market has been its considerable size and huge resource base. After a decade of no growth, creeping inflation, then increasing foreign debt and protectionism, and bloated government payrolls, the countries of Latin America has begun to process the economic transformation. Balanced targets are a priority of privatization is underway. Free markets, open economies, and deregulations have begun to replace the policies of past. In many countries, tariffs that sometimes reach as much as 100% or more have been lowered to only 10 to 20%. With the exceptions of Cuba, most of the elected governments in Latin America are democratic. However, there is a widespread of skepticism about the benefits of the participation fully into the global economy. As left leaning politicians such as Venezuela President Hugo become most popular, concern is growing that the free market forces may lose momentum in the region. Global corporations are watching the development closely. They are encouraged by import liberalization and prospect of the lower tariffs between the sub-region trading groups and the potential for establishment more efficient regional protection. Many observes envisions a free trade area throughout the hemisphere. The four most important preferential trading among in Latin America and Central American integration system, that is SICA, also the Andean community and the common market of the South, that is also called as Mercosur, and the Caribbean community and common market, that is CARICOM. So, what is the full form CARICOM? Caribbean community and common market. So, first we will talk about Central American integration system. So, what is this Central American integration system? So, Central America is trying to receive its common market, which was set up in the early 1960s. The five members, El Salvador, then Honduras, then it's very difficult to spell these names. El Salvador, Costa Rica, Panama, I know, and rest of the three. You just see these names. That all these countries decided in June 1991 to establish the Central American Common Market, that is CACM, Central American Common Market. Efforts to improve the regional integration gain momentum with the granting to observer status of Panama. In 1997, with the Panama as the member, the group's name was changed to SICA. Now, the next table, that is SICA income and population. Just look at this table. The Secretarial for the Central American Economic Integration, headquartered in Guatemala City, helps to coordinate the progress towards the true Central American Common Market. Common rules of the origins also adopted, allowing for more free movement of goods among the SICA countries. SICA countries agreed to conform to a CT of 5 to 10 20% of most of the goods in the mid 1990s. Many tariffs had previously exceeded to approximately 100%. Starting in 2000, import duties coverage to the range of approximately 0 to 15%. Implementation of the Central American Trade or Central American Free Trade Agreement with the United States created a free trade that is known as DR CAFTA that includes five SICA members, uh, including all these five. Only Panama was excluded. Okay, plus the dominant Republican implementation has been slow, but some of the changes has been already taken. For example, 80% of the US goods and more than half of the US agricultural products can now be imported to Central America on a duty free basis. Benefits to the Central American companies include a streamlining of the export paperwork and adoption of an online application process. The region will attract more direct investment or more direct foreign direct investments as foreign companies are reduced to risk thanks to clearer rules. In addition to this, a significant number of companies in Central America operated as the shadow economy. With many commercial transactions are going reportedly, government tax revenues should increase as community join the formal economy to take advantage of CAFTA benefits. Despite of this progress, attempts to achieve the integration of Central America has been described as uncoordinated, insufficient, and very costly. Tariffs still exist on the export and import, such as sugar, on coffee, and alcoholic beverages. For example, that are also produced in importing country, as the Guatemalan analyst remarked more than one decade ago that only when I see Salvadorian beer on sale in Guatemala and Guatemalan beer sell on EI Salvador, I will believe that the trade liberalization or integration is a reality. So that is not happening. Now next is so this is the map of Andean Andean community. So these all Andean community it is based in South Africa. Sorry, South America. So these countries are Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. Okay. So the Andean community that is communicated that we have seen uh, in this table. Now we will just see these figures also. So these are the four countries. Those are Andean community income and population. So Andean community was formed in 1969 to accelerate the development of the members state in Bolivia, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Venezuela through the economic and social integration. Chile withdrawals from this in 1976. The remaining five members agreed to low tariff and intra-group trade and to work together to decide what products of each country they should produce. At the same time, foreign goods and the companies were kept out as much as possible. One Bavilion described the unfortunate result of this lack of competition in the following way that we had agreed, but you buy our overpriced goods and we will buy yours. So this was the disaster at that time. In 1988, the group members decided to get a fresh start. Beginning in 1992, the Andean Pact significantly agreed to form a Latin American first operating a sub-regional free trade area. The pact abolished all the foreign exchanges, financial and fiscal incentives, and export subsidiaries at the end of 1992. Common external tariffs were established, making the transactions to a true custom union. Overall, one second. Yes, overall, however, the region's rural residents and the urban poor have become the frustrated and impatient with the lack of progress. One of the Canadian scholar, they have said that after 10 to 15 years of this operating with the free trade policies, paradise hasn't come. People start wondering if the gospel was good as advertised. Blessed with this location near the equator, Ecuador's cut flower industry generates hundreds of millions of dollars sale in each year. About 70% of the Ecuador's flower harvested is exported to United States. In all, about one-fourth of the cut roses in the United States come from the Ecuador. For years, thanks to this Canadian trade promotion and drug eradication, flower from the Ecuador's Colombia, Bolivia, and Peru were imported to the United States, that is duty free. In US, the Congress passed the act to encourage the Latin American farmers to cultivate ornamental flowers rather than the plant that are the part of illegal drug trade. However, the act expired at the end of 2006 for Peru and Colombia. The flower trade is covered by the bilateral trade agreement. Although Ecuador's duty-free status was extended, the president of Rafael Correa is opposed to free talks free trade talks with the United States. He stance has promoted fears that flour production will plummet and resulting the thousands of the job will get lost. Competing the ideologies help to explain why intra-regional trade is not yielding more benefits. Peru and Colombia are pursuing growth in through the capitalism, whereas the government in the Ecuador and Bolivia are the socialist learning. Venezuela withdraw from the Andean Committee in 2006. President Hugo declared that the community is dead after the Peru and Colombia began negotiating free trade agreements with the United States. Venezuela is currently in the process of becoming the full member of Mercosur. Now, what is Mercosur? That we will just now learn. Up till now, whatever we have seen, that if you want to do the global environment, global business, that is international business, we are more talking about the trade. Okay, so there are so many examples of failures of this trade, whether it is FTA or they are agreeing with some of the low tariff areas. Then, up till now, whatever you have studied, what is your opinion? Why this trade is getting failure? What are the reasons of failure? Can anybody unmute and tell? Okay, you can think and you can tell later on. I hope you are listening and you are not sleeping. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this was the one of the code by the Argentina's Abeki consultancy. The name again, these are very difficult to spell out this name. Mauricio Claveria. Okay, what he said, the boom in the export of commodities to the countries such as China and India has led to the emergence of Latin American countries with a larger customer demand. Agreements such as Mercosur facilitates the trade within the region of products with higher level of value added. Now, this what is this Mercosur? Common markets of South Mercosur. First, we will see which are various countries those are associated with this Mercosur. Here I have written, but still we will see this. Okay, so Mercosur, income and population, and here we will talk about this. Now, in March 2011, marked as the 20th anniversary of the signing of the auction treaty. The treaties the treaty signified the agreement of by the government in of the Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay to form the common market of South, that is called as Mercosur. That just we have seen in these figures. The four countries agreed to begin the phasing of the tariff from January 1995. Internal tariffs were eliminated and cities of the 20% of the less established. In theory, goods, services, and factors of production will ultimately move freely throughout the member of the countries. Until this goal is achieved, however, Mercosur will actually operate as the customs union rather than the true common market. Today, about 90% of the goods are traded freely. However, individual members of Mercosur can change both internal tariff as well as external tariff when it suits the respective government. Much depends on the successful outcome of this excitement in regional cooperation. The early signs were positive as the trade between the four full member nations grew dramatically during the 1990s. However, the region has experienced a series of financial crises. For example, Brazil's currency was devalued in 1995 and again it was devalued in 1999. So we will talk more about this Mercosur. Argentina provides a case study in how a country can emerge from the economic crisis as a strong global competitor. Argentina's economy minister responded to the financial crisis in 2001 and 2002 by implementing emergency measures that included 29% of the currency devaluation for exports and transactions. Argentina was allowed to break from the CT and raise duties on the consumer goods. The crisis had a silver lining, that is, virtual overnight. Argentina's wine export to USA were worth four times more than the dollar revenues were converted into pesos. Pesos is their currency. The currency devaluation was also made in Argentina vineyard properly cheap for the foreign buyers. Low prices for lands, inexpensive labor, and ideal growing conditions for this Malbec grape, that is the quality of the grape, Malbec grape, has combined to make Argentina's wine industry a major player in world markets. One of the winemaker quoted that you can make better wine here for less money than anywhere in the world. A new challenge looms, however, the dollar's weakness relative to the euro means that the winemakers are paying 25% more for the oak again, aging the barrels imported for the France. The trade agreement landscape in region continues to evolve. In 1996, the Chile becomes the associate members of Mercosur. Policymakers opted against the full membership because the Chile has already lowered the external tariffs and rest of the Mercosur. Ironically, a full membership would have required raising them. Now, in other words, you can say that Chile participates in the free trade area aspect of the Mercosur, but not on the custom union. Now, Chile's export-driven success make it as a role model for rest of the Latin American as well as the Central Europe and Eastern Europe. Now, in 2004, Mercosur signed a cooperation agreement with the Andean community. As a result, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru has become associate members. The EU is Mercosur's number one trading partner. Mercosur has signed an agreement with EU to establish a free trade area. Germany and France are opposed to such agreement on the grounds of the low-cost agriculture exports from the South America will harm the farmers in Europe. Venezuela began the process of joining Mercosur in 2006. The same year it withdraws from the Andean community. For several years, Venezuela repealed the awards of booming demands and high prices of oil. Oil revenues account for the 75% of its exports. Its president, Hugo, uh, is a self proclaimed revolutionary firebrand. After being elected in 1998, he proclaimed that his vision for Venezuela was socialism for the 21st century. Even so, Venezuela offers significant market opportunities for global companies. General Motors produces vehicles at the plant in Venecia, even running three shifts a day, it is unable to meet the demand. Procter and Gamble's Latin American headquarters are located in Caracas. The other global companies with the operations in Venezuela include the Cargill, then Chevron, then Exxon Mobil, Ford, Kellogg's, 3M, and Toyota. So, what is CARICOM? CARICOM are Caribbean Community and Common Market. Now, we'll just see which are the countries here first, then we will. So, map of this CARICOM. So, in between the North America and South America, there are a number of islands. So, these are the part of CARICOM. So, CARICOM was formed in 1973. We'll just go back to that slide. Yes, CARICOM was formed in 1973 as a movement towards the unity in Caribbean Sea islands nations. It replaced the Caribbean Free Trade Association, that is CARIFTA. CARIFTA was founded in 1965. The members are Antigua and Bahamas, then Belize, um, Barbados, then Haiti, Jamaica, and the countries you can read on the screen. Difficult to spell those names. Saint Lucia, Saint Vincent, and Grenadines, and Trinidad. Yes, Trinidad, and Tobago. Okay, so these are the countries. The population of the entire 15 members CARICOM is about 15 million people. There are disparate levels of the economic development can be seen by comparing the GNI per capita in Dominica and Grenada with that of the Haiti, that we will just see in this figure. To date, this CARICOM main objective has been to achieve the deepening of the economic integration by means of Caribbean Common Market. However, CARICOM was largely stagnant during the first 2 decades of its existence. At its annual meeting in July 1991, members of the countries agreed and speed integration a custom union was established with some common external tariffs. At the end of 1998, the summit meeting, leaders from the 15 countries agreed to move quickly to establish an economic union with the common currency. A recent study of the issues has suggested, however, that limited extent of intra-general trade would limit the potential gains from the lower transactional cost. If the original 1973 treaty were revised, then CARICOM nations could qualify for the membership in a proposed FTA, Free Trade Areas for the Americas, that is FTAA. As on author, the Prime Minister of the Barbados explained that the old treaty limited the movement of the capital, skill, and businesses in the region. The treaty has to be changed so the regional trade policies can be widened to deal with the FTAA and EU. And such matters, bilateral investment treaties, the intellectual property rights, and trade and in services. The English speaking CARICOM members in the Eastern Caribbean are also concerned with defending their privileged trading positions with the United States. The status dates to the Caribbean Basin Initiative, that is CBI. CBI means Caribbean Basin Initiatives of 1984, which promoted the export production of the certain products by providing free duty US market access to total 20 countries, including the members of CARICOM. Recently, the Caribbean Basin Initiative's members requested that CBI be expanded. The Caribbean Basin Trade Partnership Act, which went to be on effect from October 1st, 2000, exempts the textile and apparel exports from the Caribbean to United States from duties and tariffs. CARICOM is shown in this particular map. Now, what is current trade related issues? One of the biggest trade related issues in the Western Hemisphere is creating of a free trade area of the Americas, that is FTAA. However, leaders in several Latin American countries, Brazil in particular, are frustrated by Washington's tendency to dedicate trade terms that will benefit specific interest in United States. For example, bipartisanism coalition of the US policymakers favors the inclusion of the labors and other trade related requirements in the trade treaties such as FTA. Labor law enforcement was included in the text of the free trade agreements that United States signed with Jordan and Morocco. However, several Latin American leaders are opposed to including the lower standards of FTAA. Now, Brazil and its Mercosur partners are advocating a slower three-stage approach to negotiate with the United States. The first stage would include the discussion of business facilitation issues such as standardization custom forms and industry deregulation. The second stage would focus on dispute settlement and the rules of origin, and the third stage will focus on the tariff. Meanwhile, as previously noted, Mercosur, CARICOM, SICA, and Andean Community are taking steps towards further intra-regional integration and aligning with the European countries. Now, we have seen most of the countries in North America, South Africa, and in between. Now, we will go to the Asia Pacific, that is Asian countries. So, Asia Pacific, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. So, that is called as South uh, Asian, ASEAN. So, the Association Southeast Asian Nations, that is called as ASEAN, was established in 1967 as an organization for economic, political, social, and cultural cooperation among its member countries. Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand were the original six members. Vietnam became the first communist nation in the group when it was admitted to the ASEAN in July 1995. Cambodia and Laos also admitted in the organization's 30th anniversary meeting in July 1997. Burma, that is known as Myanmar by ruling the military junta, joined in 1998 following the delays related to country's internal politics and human rights records. Now, the original six members, sometimes referred as ASEAN 6. Just you can look out this figure. Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, then Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos, Myanmar. So all the countries in Pacific Ocean. Okay. So individually and collectively, the ASEAN countries are active in regional and global trade. ASEAN's top trading partners include the Japan, EU, China, and United States. A few years ago, ASEAN officially released the board common goals were not enough to keep the association alive. Although the Asian member countries are geographically close, they have historically been divided into many respects. One problem was the strict need of concern and conscience among the team members before privilege proceeding for any type of cooperation efforts. The Asian Free Trade Area, that is AFTA, has finally become a reality thanks to the recent progress in achieving the international tariff reproduction among the six founding Asian members. The Asian leaders are now working to establish a fully integrated single market Asian economic country. Uh, so this is the Asian income and population you can see. Recently, Japan, China, and Korea are also informally added as a group member on the roster. Some observe it called them as Asian plus three. These three are Japan, China, and Korea. When the roster expanded, again included Australia, New Zealand, and India, it was dubbed as ASEAN plus six. The latter is working on to the establishment as the East Asian East Asian communities, with the first step being the establishment of East Asian Free Trade Area. Also, China's participation has met some of the oppositions. China dynamic growth and increasing power in these regions required respond. Uh, Rodolfo served the Asian Secretary General from 1998 to 2000 has noted approximately a decade ago that you can either close yourself off from China and crouch in fear or engage more closely, although some industries will get hurt. The overall impact of both China and ASEAN would be beneficial. Okay. In again 1st January, we have seen 1st January at many times. In 1st January 2010, marked as the formal establishment of the new China ASEAN FTA, encompassing approximately 1.9 billion people. The new FTA removes the tariff on 90% of the trade goods. Overall, FTA should benefits the entire region. Malaysia, for example, should experience the increase of commodity exports such as palm tree and rubber. However, some Asian industry sectors could also be hurt by flood and low-cost Chinese imports. Thailand's leaders are also concerned about the impact on the global steel and textile industries that have been asked for a delay in lifting the tariffs. Singapore represents a special case among the Asian nations. In fewer than 3 decades, Singapore transformed itself from a British colony to a vibrant 24 square mile industrial power. Singapore has extremely efficient infrastructure. A port of Singapore is the world's second largest container port, that is, Hong Kong is at number one. The standard of living second in the region, only to Japan. Then Singapore, 5 million citizens played a critical role in country's economic achievements by readily accepting that nation is the country with the most knowledge will win. The global integration. Now, excellent training programs and approximately 94% of the literacy rate have helped why Singapore has more engineers per capita than United States. Singapore's Economic Development Board has also actively recruited business interest in the nation. The manufacturing companies has been attracted to Singapore. Read like who's who of global marketing includes HP's, IBM's, Philip and Apple in all. More than 3,000 companies have operated an investment in Singapore. Singapore alone accounts for more than approximately one third of the trading of the US activities with Asian countries. US exports to Singapore in 2010 was totally approximately $39 billion and imported was totally $27.1 billion. Singapore is closely tied with its neighbor. More than 32% of the imports are re-exported to other Asian countries. Singapore's effort to fashion a civil society has gained the country some notoriety. Crime is nearly non-existent thanks to the long ruling People's Action Party's severe treatment on criminals. So this was about Asian countries, and we have seen the uh, income and population of these countries: Brunei, then Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. Now, what are the various marketing issues in the Asia Pacific region? We will see the marketing issues in Africa as well as in Asia Pacific regions. So, we will discuss this important part. What are the marketing issues in Asia Pacific or Africa? That can be one of the question in examination. Mastering the Japanese markets takes flexibility, ambitions, and long term commitment. Japan has changed from the closely market to one of the just tough market. These are barriers in Japan in terms of attitude as well as laws. Any organization wishing to compete in Japan must be committed to providing the top quality products and services. In many cases, products and marketing must be tailored to local taste. Repeat visits and extended socializing with distributors are necessary to build trust. Marketers must also master in Kiritsu system, that is the tightly knit the corporate alliances. On the lighter side, it is worth nothing that many consumers pack goods and markets in Japan, including the items that are not imported, have English, French, or German on the labels to suggest the cosmopolitan images and the Western look. A Western may wonder, however, when the actual communication task is. For example, the label in City Original Coffee proclaims "Ease your bosoms." This coffee is carefully selected with the high quality beans and roasted by all of the experiences. The indeed message is drinking our coffee provides a relaxing breaks and take a load off your chest. Casual wear and sports apparel also embellished with the factual messages. Japanese retailers do not seem at all concerned with the messages that are significantly suspects. As one of the shopkeeper explained that the point is that a message in English or French or Germany can convey the hipness and the help to sell a product. I don't expect people to read it. That shopkeeper said. Now, last part, no, second last part, Western, Central, and Eastern Europe. We will see the countries. So these are the countries here: Portugal, Spain, France, Germany, uh, and Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and so on. So the involved countries are Western, Central, and Eastern Europe. 12 newest members, they have just shown in the dotted lines. Okay, so we will talk about this. Yes, first we will talk about Western, Central, and Eastern Europe. Then we will talk about European Union, that is EU. The countries of Western Europe are among the most prosperous in the world, despite the fact of that there are significant differences in between the income between the north and south are obvious differences in the languages, culture, and one varied societies in Western Europe have gone remarkably alike. Still, enough differences remain the many observers to Western Europe in terms of three tiers. Many Britons view themselves as somewhat apart from the rest of the continent. The Euroscepticism is widespread and the country still has problems finding common ground with the historical rivalry with the Germany and France. Meanwhile, across the English Channel, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain have struggled mightily to overcome the stigma of being labeled as club-made nations or peripheral economies, and other derogatory descriptions by their northern neighbors. Indeed, as noted in the few of the cases, these southern European countries are at the central of the debt crisis, sovereign debt crisis. European unions. The origin of European unions can be traced back in 1958 Treaty to Rome. The six original members of the European communities, as the group of called them as the Belgium, France, Holland, Italy, and Luxembourg. Also, they are including West Germany. In 1973, Great Britain, Denmark, and Ireland were admitted, followed by Greece in 1998, then Spain and Portugal in 1986. In beginning of 1987, 12 countries that were the EC members set about the difficult task for creating a genuine single market in goods, services, and capital. In other words, the goal was to create a true economic union. Adopting the Single European Act by the end of 1992 was the major EC achievements. The Council and Ministry adopted more than 200 pieces of legislation and regulation to make the single market into a reality. The objective of EU member, European Union member countries is to harmonize the national laws and regulations so that goods, services, people, money can flow freely across the national boundaries. In December 31st, 1992, marked the dawn of the new economic era in Europe. Finland, Sweden, Austria officially joined the EU on the 1st January 1995, and the evidences that is more than a free trade area, custom union, or common market is the fact that citizens of the members countries are now able to free cross borders within the nation. The EU encouraging the development of a company, or the development of the community-wide labor pool. It is also attempting to shape the Europeans' charter mentality to be handled by down rules of competition, pattern after US antitrust laws. Improvements to highway and rail networks are now being coordinated as well. The European Union's top 10 trading partners are shown in this table. So that for exports, top is USA, then Switzerland, China, Russia, Turkey, Norway, Japan, India, UAE, and Canada. And top 10 importers are China, USA, Russia, Switzerland, Norway, Japan, Turkey, South Korea, Brazil, and India. Further, the United Unions enlarged a big story in this region. Cyprus and Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, and Slovak Republic and Slovenia become full EU member on 1st May 2004. In 2007, Bulgaria and Romania joined. Collectively, there are 27 nations of European Union has the home of 500 million people and constitutes of world's largest economy with more than $15 trillion combined with GNI. The map of GNI, I will just try to show you. Yes. In 1991, the Netherlands Treaty set the stage for the creation of the economic and monetary notions that includes European Central Bank and single European currency known as euro. In May 1998, Austria, Belgium, Finland, Ireland, Netherlands, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, Portugal, and Spain were chosen as the 11 charter members of the Eurozone. The single currency era, which begins in January 1999, has brought many benefits to companies in the Eurozone, such as eliminating the cost associated with the currency conversion and exchange rate of uncertainty. Now we will just see marketing issues in European Union. The European Commission established the directives to steal the deadlines for the implementation of the legislation in the individual nations. The business environment in Europe has undergone the considerable transformation since 1992. The significant implications for all the elements of the marketing mix, so product, price, place, and promotion. So instead of place, I have written the distribution here. So we will read the one by one. So product harmonization. That means that the content and the other product standards that varied among the nations have been brought into alignment. As a result, companies have an opportunity to reap the economies by reducing the number of product adoptions. For price, more competitive environment improved transparencies into the eurozones because the single currency makes it easier to compare the prices for the same product in different countries. The next is promotion, common guidelines on television broadcasting, uniform standard for television and commercials. And as place or distribution, the simplification of transit documents, elimination of the customs formalities at the border crossing. So, case Europe, for example, manufacturing and markets the farm machineries when it introduced the Magnum Factor in Europe in 1998. It offers 17 different versions because of the country regulations regarding the placement of the lights and bricks. Thanks to harmonization, the case offers the current model of Magnum MX in one version. However, because different types of implements and trailers are used in different countries, the MX is available with different kinds of hitches. The enlargement of European unions will further impact the marketing strategies. For example, food safety laws in European Union are different from those in some of the Central European countries. As a result, Coca-Cola had delayed launching its Powerade soft drink and other beverage products. Specifically, Polish and European Union food law requires the use of different ingredients. In addition, with the harmonization of laws, very size of the expanded EU offers opportunities. For example, Procter and Gamble executives foresee that their events are shortage in a particular country that will be able to shift the products from one market to another. A 27 nation in European Union also allows for more flexibility in placement of the factories. There also be challenges. For example, South American bananas grows now face 75% of tariff on exports to the new European Union countries. Previously, the tariff on bananas were virtually of non-existence. Also, because of the tariff and quotas protect sugar production in the European Unions, both consumers and food producers such as Kraft will face the rising cost. Because they are in the transition, the marketers of the Central and Eastern European presents interesting opportunities and challenges. Global companies view the region as the important new source of growth and first company to penetrate the country market often emerges as the industry leader. Exporting has been favored as the market entry mode, but direct investment in the region is one of the rights. With the wages rate with the wages rate much lower than those in Spain, Portugal, Greece, the region offers attractive locations for low-cost manufacturing. The consumer products distribution is a critical marketing mix element because of availability as the key to sell. Uh, Now we will talk about the Middle East. So Middle East countries contain Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE, United Arab Emirates. The Middle East includes total 16 countries: Afghanistan, Bahrain, Cyprus, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and UAE. Now, UAE includes Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and also ENM. The majority of the population is Arab, and the language percentage is Persian, and a small percentage is Jewish. Persian and most Arabs share same religions or similar religions, beliefs, and Islamic traditions, making the population of total 95% Muslim and 5% of Christian and Jewish. Despite this apparently homogeneity, many differences exist. Middle East countries are distributed across the index of economic freedom discussed that we have discussed already, and Bahrain ranks the highest in terms of freedom at 16. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and UAE are clustered into mid 50s. Moreover, the Middle East do not have the single societal type of typical belief, behavior, and tradition. Each capital and major city in the Middle East has a variety of special groups that can be differentiated on the basis of region, social class, education, and degree of wealth. The price of the oil derives business in the Middle East. Seven of the communities have the high oil revenues. Those include Bahrain, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. Holds the significant world oil reserves. Oil revenues have widened the gap between the poor and rich nations in the Middle East and has the disparities contribution in the political and social instability in that area. Saudi Arabia, a monarchy with 22 million people and 25% of the world known oil reserves, remain the most important market in this particular region. Now, in 2011, I'll just see, yes, the corporation councils of the Arab states of the Gulf. Before that, I will just tell you one example. In 2011, the region was rocked by the demonstration and protest that has been described as the Arab Awakening or the Arab Spring. Now, here the government of Tunisia and Egypt were overthrown. The civil war broke down in Libya and Syria region, that cracked by the insurgent activities. Elsewhere in the region, leaders were forced to make the economic and political concessions. Now, prior to these upswings, the Syria has been a case study for Lopez to changed coming in Middle East, citing the China's success at opening its economy while maintaining a social control over that particular period. Now we will talk about the Cooperation Council for Arab States of the Gulf. The key regional organizations in the Gulf Cooperation Council is called as GCC, was established in 1981 by Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. These six countries hold approximately 45% of the world's known oil reserves, but production is only 18% of the world oil output. Ironically, Saudi Arabia and the several other Middle Eastern countries post current account deflects, the largely because they must import most of the goods and services that their citizen consumes. The countries are heavily dependent on the oil revenues. Okay, this is the map of GCC. The countries are heavily dependent on the oil revenues to pay their imports. Efforts towards the economic diversification are underway. For example, Saudi Arabia has developed the new business of petrochemical, cement, and iron industries. Bahrain is expanding its banking and insurance sectors, and UAE is focusing on information technology, media, tourism, and telecommunication. The organization provides a mean of realizing coordination, integration, and cooperation in all the economic, social, and cultural aspects. The Gulf Finance Minister drew up the Economic Cooperation Agreement, converting the investment and petroleum and abolition of the custom duties, harmonizing of the banking regulation and financial and monetary coordination. GCC Committee coordinates trade development in the region, industrial strategies, agricultural policies, and uniform petroleum policies and prices. The current goals include establishing an Arab Common Market and increasing trade lies in Asia. The GCC is one of the three newer regional organizations. In 1989, two other organizations were established, that is AMU and ACC. So Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, Tunisia, and Libya bundled together in the Arab Maghreb Union, that is AMU, and Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Yemen created the Arab Cooperation Council, that is ACC. Many Arabs see their new regional groups like GCC, ACC, AMU as the embryonic economic communities that will foster the development of inter-Arab trade and investment. The newer organization that those are promising the Arab language, the Arab League, which consists of 21 member states, has contributed to required the decisions. Now, next is marketing issues. We will just discuss a few of the marketing issues here. Connection is one of the key word that conducting businesses in the Middle East. Those who take time to develop the relationship with the key businesses, the government figures are more likely to cut through the red tape and those who do not. Uh, the form of bargaining is culturally ingrained, and the visiting business personnel must be prepared for some old fashioned hanging. Establishment of the personal rapport, mutual trust, and respect are essentially the most important factors leading the successful business relationship. Decisions are usually not made by a correspondence on the telephone. The Arab business person does the business with the individuals and not with the companies. So here the effective strategy will be personal selling. Most social customers are based on the Arab male dominated societies, so women are usually not part of the business or environmental scene for traditional Muslim Arabs. Now we will talk about the underdeveloped countries like Africa. The African continent is an enormous landmass with a territory of approximately 1.7 million square miles. The United States would fit into Africa about 3.5 times. It is not really possible to treat Africa as a single economic unit, as there are total 54 nations on the continent, and that can be divided into three distinct areas: Republic of South Africa, North Africa, and Sub-Saharans, or Black Africa, located between the Saharas in the north, Zimbabwe river in the south. With 1.3% of the total world's wealth and the 11.5% of the world's total population, Africa is a developing region with an average per capita income less than $600. Many African nations are former colonies of the Europe, and European Union remains the continent's most important trading partner. The Arabs living in North Africa are differentiated politically and economically. The six northern nations are richer and more developed, and several, notably Libya, Algeria, and Egypt, benefits from the large oil resources. Once again, I will close door. The Middle East, the Middle East and North America, sorry, the Middle East and North Africa are sometimes viewed as the regional entity known as MENA. As the oil prices have soared, the International Monetary Fund, that is IMF, is encouraging the MENA policymakers to invest the petrodollar windfall in infrastructure improvements as a way of sustaining economic growth. Most governments in this area are working to reduce the reliance of an oil revenues and their public aid levels. The economies of the non-oil based emerging MENA countries, which include Jordan, Lebanon, Morocco, Tunisia, and has one of the formed in the recent years. So this is ECOWAS. ECOWAS means Economic Community of West African States. That is called as ECOWAS. So these countries are involved. So income and population is given here. The Treaty of the Lagos Establishment in Economic Community of the West African States, that is ECOWAS, was signed in May 1975. by total 16 states with the object of promoting trade, cooperation, and self reliances in the South Africa. The members here are Benin, then Burkina Faso, Cape Verde, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia, Ghana, then Liberia, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, Togo, and so on. So in 1980s, the member countries agreed to establish a free trade area for the unprocessed agricultural products and handicrafts. Tariff on the industrial goods were also to be abolished. However, there are some implementation delays. So just see the map of the SAT, South African developed countries and the ECOWAS. Just now we have seen the ECOWAS and such a large continent of Africa. So after that we will move towards East African Community. East African Community is a small part that includes that includes the countries like Burundi, then Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. So Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi are the five nations that comprise the world's newest common market. The East African Community origins date back more than 40 years, but it has been only been since 1999 that substantial progress has been made towards the integration and cooperation. Today, the East African communities has evolved through the several of the stages listed in this particular table. In 2005, a custom union was implemented. The formulation of the common markets in 2010 resulted the first free movement of the people, goods, and services and capital within the community. Members are also intended to move swiftly to establish the economic union. The first step will be creating a monetary union in 2012. A common currency will be introduced in 2015, and there is even talk about the forming a single nation. As an observer noted that the idea of United States of East Africa is less far-reaching than it was before. Now, last two parts. First, we will talk about these uh, SADC, South African Development Communities. So, Angola, Botswana, then Democratic Republic of Congo, so many Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Switzerland, South Africa. These countries are involved here. So, what are the various marketing issues in South Africa? So, this is the last part, marketing issues in Africa. Then we will stop with the summary. So, in 2000, the US President George Bush signed the African Growth and Opportunities Act, that is called as AGOA, not AGOA, into the law. You can see that in www.agoa.gov, that was created with the theme of trade, not aid. The law designed to support the African nations to make significant progress towards the economic liberalization. Economies will find it easier to gain the access to financing from the US Import Export Bank. AGOA also represents a formal step forward, a US Africa free trade area. One of the Act's key provision of grant textile and apparel manufacturing in Kenya and Mauritius free access to the US market up the limit of 3.5 billion in export each year. Benjamin, that is Kenya's ambassador to the United States, observed a decade ago that every country that has industrialized, starting from England in the 18th century, began with the textile, and we are like to do the same thing. So it is a positive statement made by the ambassador of Kenya. So under the agreement of textile and clothing negotiated during the Uruguay's round of GATT negotiations, the global textile codes were eliminated in 2005. Nevertheless, the textile provisions in AGOA is controversial. The United States imports approximately $100 billion in textile and apparel each year. The largest share, that is more than 40%, originates in China, with the balance from the other parts of Asia plus Latin America and Africa. Legislations from the textile producing states fear job losses among their constitutions. Then, despite of such initiatives, only 3% of the annual foreign direct investment goes to the Africa. Still, some of the Persian Gulf states are creating closer ties with Africa, investing billions of dollars in the key sectors such as infrastructure, then agriculture, telecommunication. For example, Dubai World, a state-owned company, is negotiating a deal with Nigeria's energy sector that could be valued as the several billion dollar. Dubai also funded construction of a container terminal that opened recently in uh, Djibouti, the world largest terminal of its kind in sub-Saharan African. It will be managed by DP World, a subsidiary of Dubai World. Such investments are welcome at a time of investments in the Europe stung by the economic losses as it is developed world are the cutting spreadings. Now we will go to the summaries. So this particular chapter, that is the global trade environment. This chapter examines the environment for the world trade, focusing on the institutions and regional cooperations agreement that affect the patterns. Then the Multilateral World Trade Organization, created in 1995 as a successor of the General Agreements on Tariff and Trades, provides a forum for settling disputes among the member nations and tries to set the policies for the world trade. The world trade environment is also characterized by preferential trade agreements among the smaller members of the countries on a regional and sub-regional basis. These agreements can be conceptualized on a continuum of increasing economic integration. Then we have seen FTA. So free trade areas, such as one of created by North American Free Trade Agreement, that is NAFTA, represents the lowest level of economic integration. The purpose of free trade agreement is to eliminate the tariff and the quotas. Rules of the origins are used to verify the country from which the goods are shipped. The custom union, such as Mercosur, represents a further degree of integration in the form of common external tariffs. A common market, such as Central American Integration System, that is CICA, and the East African Community, restriction on the movement of labor and capital are eased in the effort of further increased integration. And economic union, such as European Union, the largest level of economic integration is achieved by unification of economic policies and institutions. Harmonizations, the coming together of the varying standards and regulation is the key characteristics of European unions. Other important cooperation arrangements include the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations, that is ASEAN, and the Cooperation Council of the Arab States of the Gulf, that is GCC. In Africa, the two important cooperation agreements are the Economic Community of West African States, that we have seen ECOWAS, and the South African Development Communities, that is SADC. So this was about summary, and the discussion questions are like this. Explain the role of World Trade Organization, why the Doha round of the trade talks. Then discuss or describe the similarities and differences between a free trade area, a custom union and a common market, and the economic union. Give example of each. So second, you can say as an important question for your examination. Question number 2. Then the creation of the single market in Europe has led to harmonization. What does it mean? How does harmonization affect a company's global marketing strategy? Then, what are the criteria for joining the Eurozones? And identify the regional economic organizations or agreements in following areas like Latin America, then South Pacific or Western Europe, Central Europe, Mid Middle East and Africa. Also, you can see one of the important question is this question: marketing issues in Africa. So, what are the key marketing issues in Africa? And you can suggest some measures how to overcome these issues. So, for me, this question and this question number two are important for exam point of view. So, if you are having any doubts, then you can ask.